This is David Tulis, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, the blogger with the biggest pen. And that would be, the pen would be perhaps our tower on 92.7 FM Signal Mountain. And also the same monument, if you will, emitting a signal at 95.3 FM HD4. That's digital, high definition digital. You can hear my guest's Adam's apples bopping in their throat. It's so precise. Every sound is picked up. There's a separate squiggle line for every little sound on digital, and that's high definition digital, and that is only here at the radio station for the man who matters, for the person who matters. We are the all-new Nooga Radio, and we are a lifestyle multimedia platform. I'm the writer who covers news here in Chattanooga, and make sure that you subscribe to us at yournews.com. If you're at yournews.com in the area, you just your URL will your signature for your computer will register, and it will automatically give you Chattanooga. If not, just select Chattanooga, and you will be directed to our national international page. But there's one you want to look at, and that's the local front page. And there I have my story about last night's event. It is not about the gun issue. The gun protest is today across the county and many high schools across the area, and in fact, the whole country. But we're talking about something which is, well, a little bit more subtle, maybe not as exciting. It was exciting to more than a dozen protesters, though, a dozen people who spoke before the city council last night. At the end of the meeting, there's always a kind of a free-for-all for members of the public and others, lobbyists and do-gooders, promoters, and whatnot, to make their statements. They're graciously given 5 minutes by the council to speak. And last night there was one topic that came up, and that was a proposed ban on panhandling by Mayor Andy Berke's administration. Now, Mayor Berke is insulated from this story in the media, all the media except for me, of course, because I put anything Chief Roddy does, whether good or bad, anything good he says that is good or bad, at the foot of the mayor, because after all, the police department is part of the executive branch, and he serves just as Rex Tillerson served Donald Trump. David Roddy serves Mayor Andy Berke as an extension of executive power, extension of you might say executive government. And David Roddy last Tuesday, 8 days ago, proposed a comprehensive ban on begging for alms in Chattanooga, a proposal that every person who spoke last night, I would say, well, 100% of, I think, about a dozen. I lost count. There were so many, I just kind of lost count, and I would just throw it into the realm of dozen, maybe 15, maybe 10, something like that, unanimously spoke against this proposal. Most of them taking no more than a minute or two. Very few, even the minister with the caller promising something of a sermon, not taking the whole time allotted for that presentation. We have with us here one of those who spoke last night. Her name is Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian, and she is a speech fan and a speech instructor at UTC. Jeannie, what is it that my listener needs to know about this proposal? What is it that you said last night? And as you think about it again, kind of how you would reframe your ideas, what does the listener need to know about this proposal?
Well, I think it's an issue of Chattanooga being a creative and kind city. So that's what's at issue here. And basically finding somebody $50 for asking for help. These people aren't going to ask for help if they don't need it. And then they would go to jail if they didn't pay the $50 fine.
Well, what's wrong with that? Maybe they deserve jail. Maybe jail would be better for them. There might be better food there.
Yeah, no, but I don't think that Chief Roddy thought through the humanitarian edges of this issue. It's very complex. It's too complex to just have two sides. One thing is that for a police officer to judge that someone looks homeless. Like, that's a constitutional issue. So based on the way somebody's dressed. And as an artist and arts advocate, I know that a lot of artists just dress out of goodwill, and I don't want them to be harassed.
Well, you're suggesting somehow that officers will arrest people for looking homeless. That's not exactly what's proposed here. What's proposed is there be an extension of a ban on panhandling. And panhandling is coming up to someone and asking for money or food or gifts or to buy something. Buy this cracker for $5 or something like that. So that's what panhandling is.
But it would also include somebody on the street with their violin case open or their banjo and busking, which is entertainment.
But yeah, to busk, B-U-S-K, which is playing a fiddle or a tuba or a horn or banging drums on the sidewalk
like out in front of the Chattanooga market.
Right. And it is a kind of panhandling too, because often there's a pan or a bucket in front of the artist's foot, right?
I think one thing about that is that it's like the way the city feels to people. And we've worked really hard to attract knowledge workers here. And I train knowledge workers at UTC. And knowledge workers like creative cities. That's what we've been trying to do to help grow the economy of our city.
Well, explain what do you mean by knowledge worker? What is that?
You're a knowledge worker. Where's your shovel? You got a microphone and a computer, nice setup. So it's just people that work in the cyber techie fields.
Well, how is it that they would come in view of this panhandling ordinance, Jeannie?
Well, because it affects artists, because it affects like how the city feels. I think that would be a deterrent. Like, we just got Police Chief Fletcher to come and give the last few years of his retirement to helping Chattanooga be a more open city. Where we have an issue with police officers harassing people who don't look like the people they choose to protect.
Are you saying that there's a class operation of this department, or a racial operation of this department? Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian?
I think it's status, and there's just like a perception. You don't look very good, you might not be very good. But we know that a large part of our homeless population are veterans. So you're going to fine a veteran and put them in jail for asking for a handout because they didn't want to go sit in a mental institution.
What kind of reference was made last night, Jeannie, to people with what we would call mental health problems among panhandlers, among beggars and homeless people? It's
true that a lot of it is that. And we had someone, a doctor, come and talk to us about how childhood trauma leads to things like that. And we know that our Moccasin Bend Mental Institution kicked out all the harmless mental people and put them on the streets a few years ago. So they're still there.
Well, this is David Tulis. We do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time here at New York Radio. This is 92.7 FM. We argue on the David Tulis Show for local economy and the free market. The slogan, now this is a slogan you should probably put in your store, hang it over the aisles, and when your customer walks past, the sign waves very slightly in the breeze he creates by going to the end there where you have your special offer. And that sign says the following: love your neighbor and buy local. You can do that even if you run a franchise. And we argue here that the Nooga-centric principle. There are 5 nostrums or maxims of Nooga-centrism, and I am Dr. David Tulis, Dr. Nooga-centric, if you will. Even though I have just a master's degree, I'll claim that honorific. And the claim is, Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian, that near is better than far, that small is better than big, and that simple is way better than complex. And down the footnotes, I like footnotes. Always 5-point type, and always Helvetica, which is the neutral font, right? Helvetica is neutral. It's Swiss. It's neutral. And we have there that personal is better than corporate, and that physical is better than abstract. We're brought to you by yournews.com Chattanooga. That's yournews.com Chattanooga. Make sure you if you miss our discussion here because you're busy making a living and prospering your enterprise and have to duck out, just you can get caught up by going to yournews.com. Check out my story about the city council last night, and I quote Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian and others, a whole list of local notables, from many of them coming from, you might say, the left side of Christianity, and they are from a noted religious effort here concerning itself with social activism. Now, I've got, I wanted to, Jeannie, just listen with me. We're going to hear a businesswoman who spoke last night. Here she is.
I wanted to speak for a minute. I have been a businesswoman in the city of Chattanooga. I have dealt with aggressive panhandlers. It's as simple as stepping out and very firmly saying, you must leave. You cannot behave this way. It does not take an ordinance. It does not take a fine. With any individual that becomes overly aggressive, regardless of whether they're a panhandler or not, if they stepped across that line and it needs to be handled by the police, then so be it.
Right.
But we will not stand for criminalizing, fining, and potentially forcing people into mental health care or into incarceration because they are the most vulnerable citizens in our city. Nashville, it was brought to my attention.
This is last night.
A friend of mine works in the tourism industry over there. Nashville, the business owners and the people, the business managers, handle the aggressive panhandlers. It does not take an additional city ordinance. We already have a city ordinance here. We already have a state bill that went into effect dealing with aggressive panhandling. We do not need any additional laws on the book on this.
So, Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian, what do you make of the suggestion that the city does not need, the people of Chattanooga, my listener included, does not need extra protection, extra safety from an ordinance that would be enforced by David Roddy and his fine line of blue?
I totally agree with that. We're a city that cares, and this is just a cultural issue, I think. And we don't need to tell police officers that it is their job to take on these people who are basically asking for help. You know, if somebody comes up to you and asks for money, you simply don't have to give them money, but other people like to. I know my students talk about that coming down from UTC, and they're like, well, you know, somebody asked me for money, and at first I thought that made me feel uncomfortable. And then I said, I want to get out of my comfort zone. And you know, it's like a way to know, to see, to make these people not be invisible and to give money. Like, it's no different than giving to a charity.
Right. And if you're my listener or someone who has not dealt with a beggar before, it can be an exhilarating experience to say no. I mean, you can grow as a man. You can grow as a woman, being more mature by saying, you know, I'm not going to give you any money, so please leave me. I mean, that may be the right thing for you to say and do, because you are asserting yourself, and that's important to do. Yeah. However, you can say, you know, I really feel for you, and here $5, or let me take you across the street to Five Guys and order you a hamburger meal, just so I can make sure you're not going to spend it on something stupid like narcotics. If you think that might happen to the person before you, and you have the time and you want to learn about this side of the world, well, then you can do what a Christian would feel God calling him to do, and that would be have a personal connection with someone. Like, I know Mr. Ballinger downtown. I've met him, and I've taken people to eat something with me, and it's not a big deal, but I find out who they are, find out about their stories, know why they're living in that tower downtown by the Edney building that's always has fire trucks pulling up to it. and so here we have a way of learning about other people. Here now we have a little bit more from last night. There's a gentleman who,
they need it.
Listen,
Thank you.
This is a businesswoman. Now there's some applause. Almost every speaker was applauded last night at the city council. And coming up next is a man, I believe, who delivers pizza. And he speaks very well.
6209 13th Avenue, Chattanooga, 37407. I just want the council to know that I've never been threatened by a panhandler, been approached 3 times. I sometimes give them money, sometimes not. Sometimes I know they're not really homeless. And they're looking for drugs, alcohol. But when I give them money, that's on them at that point. I want y'all each look in y'all's hearts. If y'all are true Christians, you won't vote for this. Your Christ demands that you help these people.
A lot of appeals to God, the Lord Jesus Christ, as we can hear, looking into your own hearts. The idea being that charity is something that is a personal relationship. And who is the police? Who is the mayor to say that? Well, we're going to outlaw that appeal from one man or woman to another man or woman on the sidewalk.
I don't see that happening. Please don't erect barriers for these people. They have enough barriers as it is in their life. A $50 fine, how are you going to get that from somebody that has a job? They can't get jobs because they don't have a dress. They don't have clean clothes to go to the interview. There's no way these people can be employed at the time without help. So please look in your hearts and don't judge these people, but help them. Don't put barriers in their way. Help them. I live in District 9. There's many houses on each corner that have city liens on them for not paying taxes. Can we not open these houses up to these people or help them in some small way?
Well, that's a man. I believe he's the one who is a pizza driver, and he says he's been approached many times by mendicants begging alms of him. They think maybe he has an extra pizza or a leftover pizza or a non-delivered pizza. Maybe they can just take it from him or take some of his petty cash in his leather bag. And here he is saying to city council members, look into your own hearts. What would the Lord Jesus say about a barricade against the act of begging one soul to another? That is, in fact, what begging is. And what Chief Roddy made a point last week, Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian, is this, that, well, as he alleged it, 92% of money that goes to panhandlers is wasted on riotous living. That is to say, alcohol, narcotics, maybe other things like that are self-destructive. And so his plea was that money given by charitable, well-meaning and maybe sometimes maybe fearful donors in Chattanooga is wasted, and therefore we need to be able to prevent those petitions from being made. What do you make of the use of the gospel? Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian, you're a speech instructor at UTC. What do you make of these the ban on speech, as it were?
Well, I think it is a free speech issue. If you say to me, I need $5, and I say to you, this police officer will now fine you $50 and take you to jail, like that's free speech. And in other cities that have passed ordinances like this, they've been struck down judiciously as being unconstitutional. But I think that Chattanooga, like, we're strong enough to be able to handle ourselves. We have an ethic here about taking care of our people. We've been doing that for a long time. So I think that we can handle it without further criminalizing our society.
The ordinance that we have on the books right now is 11-352, and it does designate there are several areas of town that are not allowed to, in which panhandling is not permitted, and that includes the Walnut Street Bridge, Miller Park, Miller Plaza, the park at Ross's Landing, the Tennessee River Park, the block, and that would include the block in which the aquarium is located, and also the Chattanooga African American Museum and the IMAX Theater. And so aggressive panhandling is given as a crime in the Tennessee Code, but it's also repeated in the ordinance, meaning it's enforceable by the city police on the point of aggressive panhandling. And that phrase was used quite a bit last night in the city council. And none of the speakers, Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian, seemed to object to that statute and the repeating, the rough repeating of it in the ordinance. And aggressive panhandling is the threat of imminent bodily injury or the commission of a criminal act upon the person. That would be putting your hand. If the panhandler put his hands on you, and if he's a man, you're a woman, that's clearly an assaultive battery, or you fear injury, or you are actually being touched, which is improper, and that's already criminally chargeable if you file a complaint under the law. And so that and blocking the path, or persisting when the panhandler is given a negative response, persisting in demanding the $5, chasing after the person, clamoring for the donation, that would be aggressive.
Yeah, we're not seeing that, right? That's just made up thing.
I'm sorry?
I mean, that seems very made up to me. I've never seen that.
Yeah, well, that's what we heard of the people who spoke about having been repeatedly approached by panhandlers. One of those who made that comment is Mark Gilliland. He is a social activist. It's going to pick up here. Hang on.
Last couple of speakers. I just bought a car earlier. Before that, I had walked and ridden a bike in the city for the last 6 years as my main mode of transportation. I'm a born and raised Chattanooga.
This is Mark Gilliland.
And I've been getting around the city on foot for a long time, working in these downtown restaurants that are all shiny and great.
City council meeting.
I don't really know what to say other than this
last
is a
night.
huge step backward. I've met so many people. But I said most of this stuff in an email to y'all about half an hour before the meeting, so you might not have seen it, but you'll probably read it. But I met dozens and dozens of people on the street. People asking for money, people asking for different kinds of help, people in the middle of crises. I've talked multiple people down from doing I don't know what, but people.
He engages with people
situation
on the street
where I honestly, as someone who's born and raised here, would not call the police. I would not call the cops because I know that they are not help in a lot of these situations. And if y'all pass this ordinance, it's going to go backwards from the stuff that folks have been coming here and telling y'all to do for years to actually address poverty and to stop just criminalizing people for this stuff and to actually make a substantive shift in priorities to dealing with these root cause issues.
That's Mark Gilliland. He is a Pentecostalist minister's son turned communist because he found in Christianity, as we know about it today, largely in the area, it has rejected any claim that God makes upon the public realm, and that because Christians in the evangelical churches and even the Reformed churches in the Chattanooga area have rejected, you might say, God's claim on law and public policy. That void has been filled by the left and the Marxist, and Mark Gilliland fell into that, you might say, into that trap. And so he is arguing for more progressive, more socialistically oriented benefits to come from the city. You may not agree with that. I certainly don't, but that is what he is proposing there. In other words, he's saying let's not have a more trouble for these poor people who are begging. Let's have more social programs, more welfare for them to help them. And I understand the impulse. I wouldn't argue that as a remedy. I would suggest that the remedy is really the free market. That would be liberty, and a ban. Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian, who spoke last night here in the studio, I would say that is certainly a wrong step. That's going in the wrong direction. To say you are a criminal if you beg in Chattanooga for alms.
Yeah, I think it is a cultural issue, and that's what he's pointing out. Like Chattanooga, we've been really good at taking care of our homeless population for a long time, and maybe something interesting would be to have our social people that work for our city and our police officers to have information about how to help these people, to offer help.
Jeannie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Jeannie Hacker-Cerulian is an instructor of speech at UTC and was one of many people who spoke in the 100% range against the proposal by Mayor Andy Berke's administration to outlaw, criminalize begging, panhandling in the River City, the gig city, which has much in its future, much in its favor. But there seems to be, according to Mark Gilliland and others, a blight that this has even been proposed as an ordinance in Chattanooga. David Tulis, 92.7.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7